Benvenuti, welcome from heart to Dr. Lutz Bauer. He will make a journey with us into more fundamental insights into trust in the digital age from a more philosophic perspective. Based on your knowledge and your background in theology and ancient history, you overlook, and you are a technology nerd, you overlook the area from a philosophic perspective, not only with the European view, but one passion of yours as well, the African continent. And Ubuntu, as we have already learned yesterday from Professor von Weizsäcker, the saying of Ubuntu, the philosophy of Ubuntu on the African continent, means basically that we as a human, we have to see each other in the context of other humans, of the people around us, of the community, and of our living space. And I was at the University of St. Gallen, a visitor in May, and there was Africa Day, and artists, and I had a chance to speak with Professor Bernhard Ehrenzeller, director of the University of St. Gallen, because he used in his speech as well the term from heart, Ubuntu. So, welcome here in Cadenabia. It's a big privilege for us on trust and confidence in the digital age from a more philosophic perspective. Grazie mille.
Thank you very much, Achim, for the nice and warm welcome and greeting. Dear ladies and gentlemen, or should I say dear friends in the meantime?
Friends.
So it's not so formal. Let me start with a few remarks concerning my background. I'm a retired Protestant pastor who serves in the, I take this, it's better, who serves in the small congregation of Belgrade in Serbia. As an Old Testament scholar, I'm interested in a holistic approach of literature analysis and the social history represented in the Hebrew Bible texts. Also New Testament studies, but basically I'm working with the Old Testament. It's my favorite language too. For some 20 years, I taught religious studies, philosophy, and informatics in a high school in the Black Forest Mountains in Furtwangen. I was also responsible for computer networks, server virtualization and things like that, and both for students, for teachers, and the administration. And that was quite interesting. As an autodidact, my wife said she's not jealous, but on the servers of that school, she is jealous because I stayed there overnight sometimes. Since 10 years, I'm teaching ethics in the Faculty of Security and Safety Engineering in the Furtwangen University for Applied Studies. From 1986 to 1988, long time ago, I served in the South African Council of Churches. Everybody knows Desmond Tutu and his successor, Dr. Bayes Nodé. And that was a very stressful and very interesting, exciting time in my life. It changed my whole life because it was the end phases of apartheid. And that was a huge struggle. And I was dealing with forcibly removed communities, Black communities, and tried to communicate with no internet by then to Germany. Tourists and church people, they took informations and spread it in Germany to the partner communities. If I compare my working life with an ellipse, South Africa is one elliptic point, and the second one is, so to say, my time in Belgrade now. That's on the other side of my working life. Both contexts are as different they might seem. They are at first glance, they have in common that both societies can be regarded as highly traumatized, due to different causes though. The present war situation in Russia, Ukraine, Palestine, Israel adds to this diagnosis. Both countries could play a crucial role as places of mediation but sometimes one can have the impression that they sit between all chairs instead. The 16-pointed star you see here is on the floor in the center of my Belgrade church. It's made, of course, of light and dark marble, not as colorful. And I made this logo, and I took a picture of the star so that the proportions are correct. And then I found out that the 16 colors, in fact, are 17 colors. So I put a frame around with the 17th color, which in fact is the color for participation and cooperation in order to fulfill the Sustainable Development Goals. This is the idea behind this logo. And the cross serves as an age-old symbol of unity. Of course, it's also the Christian symbol. A cross combines and brings together the cardinal directions rather than separating them. Of course, as I said, it's a symbol of Christianity, but today I want to emphasize the unifying character rooted in pre-Christian times, and it's not a Christian thing. The digital age, I come to the contents. Contingency reloaded, SDGs with regard to safety and security issues, Ubuntu as sustainable method of discourse, trust and confidence, first I changed that. Cross-national happiness, Ubuntu, buen vivir. And trust and confidence, security, safety, certainty, and conclusions and future perspectives. This I want to share with you, and maybe if it should be too long, you will. Okay, take your time. That's good. Yeah, digital age, contingency reloaded. Life is risky, and it always was, and always life was has been full of hazards to health and well-being. This most people worldwide would agree upon. It's a commonplace. The term contingency denotes the fact that things might happen. Unforeseen things, but not necessarily, though. It's a philosophical term, contingency, even though it also plays a role in many economic systems as part of risk analysis and so on. Uncertainty marks all human endeavors to safeguard and secure daily life. Safety and security issues are being addressed by a wide spectrum of technical efforts, and digitalization plays a key role in these sophisticated scientific attempts to prevent our population from dangerous events, of course. The more powerful and successful these measures are, the safer people would feel. And actually be, not only feel. Due to my work in this safety, security engineering people, when I enter a house or a room, I check, is there the fire system Brandschutzmelder? I don't see it here. And also die Fluchtwege, the escape ways. So then we don't need to worry. So we're happy. So yes, and the more, in Western industrialized countries, this impression of invincibility was created by such technical means. And it has grown and grown and could not be shattered by any means that we thought. Then pandemic came and the years of COVID-19. They deeply rattled our self-consciousness. Suddenly we felt kicked out into a reality which our sisters and brothers in the poorer areas of the world, the 2/3 world, never had abandoned. They always felt the insecurity and the uncertainty of life. Of course, online conferences, internet communication, social media were welcomed. Digital features to uphold some sort of normality during COVID. We also managed to give our lectures with AlphaView, a very nice like Zoom-like feature of the Furtwangen University. Now that the pandemic seems to be under control, the next apocalyptic horseman, the one in red, you know, the apokalyptischen Reiter, the apocalyptic horseman. The red one is the one of war, popped up. War in Ukraine, war in Palestine, not to forget the ongoing warfares in Africa and smoldering conflicts elsewhere in the world. Threatening developments, disasters of all kind, caused by the ongoing climate change, give rise to increasing imponderability and uncertainty. Thus, contingency reloaded. Well, I fell in love with this combination. I am not so sure whether it's a very good one, but yeah, contingency reloaded denotes from the global north perspective the rising awareness of insecurity, unsafety, and uncertainty of life, despite all security systems digitalization has brought forward. Cyber attacks, as part of warfare, add to the ominous signs of the times. We just suffered together with at least 3 other German universities, including the big University of Göttingen, a cyber attack in Furtwangen. And I just heard that this wonderful bicycle project has to start from 0 level because all data has gone down the drain. So it's really, you don't want to experience that because we depend highly, and you nod as a specialist in, yeah. So these obvious dark sides of digitalization are to be supplemented by the more hidden ones, such as missing ethical programming. I always wonder why faculties, the big, huge Allgemeine Informatik, I'm not speaking only about Furtwangen, that there is no ethics being taught. Because programmers, they also need an ethical code of conduct, or at least think about it. How can I influence when it comes, I have to do the work the companies want me to do, but is there a point where I say, well, maybe when programming drones, I would stop programming the part of that app that how do you say, that uses the trigger. So when it's a war drone, so things like that, because then others would do that. But it's an important question. Who am I serving when I'm a programmer? And this, I think it's a very an interesting thing to think about. Responsible energy management when it comes to power supply of large server plants. That's also an ethical question that we have to take, that we have to consider. But also from within the system of the SDGs, there are problems of transparency and quality management. We saw that also yesterday, Damiani and others pointed out on that. Quite soon after implementation, the so-called SDG washing was detected. You know, greenwashing, and derived from that, SDG washing. Companies are making claims about their contributions that just fits on what Katharina said in a way. In my opinion, I'm not sure, we'll discuss it. Companies are making claims about their contributions to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. However, not all of these claims are genuine. And a new phenomenon known as SDG washing has emerged. SDG washing refers to when companies make vague or false claims about their contributions to the SDGs for marketing and image improvement without actually taking meaningful actions to support the goals. This practice can mislead consumers who may believe they are making a positive impact through their purchasing decisions when they are not. That is a quotation. I unfortunately didn't mark, but I find where I got it from. Digitalization could be used to create more transparency, accountability, and control, especially when it comes to SEED, supporting entrepreneurs for environment and development as a global partnership, quotation, for action on sustainable development and the green economy. Maybe they could or should implement such transparency, accountability, and control mechanisms. All these recent developments do not give hope that things might find a positive end. This is quite a frightening result of our short contextual analysis. The awareness that mankind is at the edge and in danger of falling into the abyss must be addressed in a way that shows at least some feasible ways out of the dilemmas. The Sustainable Development Goals and their 169 targets offer a proper means to name those dilemmas and difficulties. Even though we have heard critique of Ernst Ulrich from Weizsäcker and others, and I also come back to critique of the SDGs. Nevertheless, they can serve as an instrument to analyze the situation in a constructive way. They cannot be regarded as universal remedy. On the contrary, they reveal great contradictions. Even institutions and scholars associated with the United Nations point to the slow implementation, counterproductive incentives, and chosen methods. Kobe Saito, I hope I don't speak Japanese, a Japanese philosopher, called the SDGs a new opiate to the people, referring to Karl Marx, who said religion is the opiate of the people and not for the people. That was all misquoted all the time. That obscures the responsibility of corporations and politics in addressing social, climate, and biodiversity crises. Despite this criticism of the SDGs, they do represent a kind of minimum consensus based on which one can describe paths to the future. However, it will be necessary to add worldviews from outside the ruling economic system in which the Agenda 2030, the SDGs, is rooted. And these are GNH, gross national happiness, which sounds quite funny, not gross national product, but gross national happiness. It's a philosophical system of Bhutan, a Buddhist thing, and Buen Vivir, which is from Ecuador, or Ubuntu, South Africa. I come back to Ubuntu quite soon, and also on the others, but only a little because it's not enough time. But first, I would like to make a quick run through all 17 goals and put an emphasis on security and safety aspects. They might foster trust or confidence or not. We'll see. I do that very quick. Then the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals are 17 goals with 169 targets that all 191 member states of the UN have agreed upon. And they try to achieve by the year 2030 a change. Some of them also want to change something in the year 2020, which it's gone already. So that's, yeah. I'm going to examine these objectives and sub-objectives with regard to their safety aspects and briefly evaluate them. Poverty has some aspects. Social protection systems has to do with safety and security. Equal rights. I mean, these quotations are from the 169 targets. And resilience of the poor and those in vulnerable situations, and reduce their exposure and vulnerability to climate-related extreme events. Because the poorer nations, they suffer most. I just think of, it's in the meanwhile always forgotten, what is earthquake in Antalya, at the Turkish border to Syria. There are so many incidents and risks that poor people have to suffer from. Then zero hunger, and ensure access by our people, in particular to the poor and people in vulnerable situations, including infants, to safe, nutritious, and sufficient food all year round. Secure and equal access to land, other productive resources and inputs, knowledge, financial services, markets, and opportunities for value addition and non-farm employment. Good health and well-being. That was quite interesting with your presentation, that this is number one for the companies. I did not expect it. And also the number 10, it was, but you explained it so marvelously, so I could understand why. Yeah. Access to safe, effective, quality, and affordable essential medicines and vaccines for all. Also security and safety issue. Substantially reduce the number of deaths and illnesses from hazardous chemicals and air and water, soil, and pollution contamination. Also health, safety. Strengthen the capacity of all countries, in particular developing countries, for early warning, risk reduction, and management of national and global health risks. Provide safe, non-violent, inclusive, and effective learning environments for all, which is a very important thing. Many children are suffering from malnutrition. They have no safe childhood and they have no safe education. Gender equality, end all forms of discrimination against all women and girls everywhere. Eliminate all forms of violence against all women and girls in the public and private spheres, including trafficking and sexual and other types of exploitation. I have one example, a Japanese friend of a friend of mine. He is from Furtwangen, and they met when they were still at school. And he asked me whether I will welcome her in Belgrade. She wanted to meet somebody from Japan there. And she came to Belgrade, and I learned that she wants to study in Germany, because the Japanese society is obviously, and especially those in informatics and in companies, is very, how to say that, adversarial to women. And she suffered a lot in this male-dominated society. That was new to me. Maybe the ladies are nodding. So, yeah. Eliminate all harmful practices such as child, early and forced marriage, and female genital mutilation. Now we are at clean water. Universal and equitable access to safe and affordable drinking water for all. Special problem in Belgrade, they want to have a sanitation system. And our honored Professor Fahd, who swam from Furtwangen to the Black Sea, he didn't swim the 15 kilometers through Belgrade. He said he doesn't want to swim through excrements of a 2 million city. And now I invited him to come to Belgrade, and he's delivering, I organized an evening at the Goethe Institute, and we want to invite many people and see what is the outcome. Maybe we can do some little thing to improve water quality in Belgrade by reducing pollution, eliminating dumping, and minimizing releases of hazardous chemicals and materials, halving the proportion of untreated wastewater and substantially increasing recycling and safe reuse globally. Then affordable and clean energy. I didn't find a security aspect, but I was thinking that power plants, they have a security aspect, but it's not, you can read the targets. I didn't see something relevant for this topic. Then decent work and economic growth, promote safe and secure working. This is the aspect of safety in that studies. That is the side which protects the worker and not a company from intrusion from the outside, which would be the security aspect. For all workers, including migrant workers, another very special and important topic, in particular women, migrants, and those in precarious employment. Now we are here, industries, innovation, and infrastructure. Also, zero security implement. Then the reduced inequalities, facilitate orderly, safe, regular, and responsible migration and mobility of people, including through the implementation of planned and well-managed migration policies, which is an increasing important issue in Europe. I come to that maybe shortly later. Then ensure access for all adequate, safe, and affordable housing and basic services in upgrade slums. Access to safe, affordable, accessible, and sustainable transport systems for all, improving road safety, which is also a very huge problem of security and safety issues. Significantly reduce the number of deaths and the number of people affected, and substantially decrease the economic losses relative to gross domestic product caused by disasters, including water-related disasters, with a focus on protecting the poor and people in vulnerable situations. Provide universal access to safe, inclusive, and accessible green and public spaces, in particular for women and children, older persons, and persons with disabilities. Substantially increase the number of cities and human settlements adopting and implementing integrated policies and plans towards inclusion, resource efficiency, mitigation and adaptation to climate change, resilience to disasters, and develop and implement, in line with the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction 2015 to 30, holistic disaster risk management at all levels. I learned that there's also a very interesting United Nations disaster and risk avoiding department, which is very interesting. I couldn't go deeper into that. Responsible consumption and production. Achieve environmentally sound management of chemicals and all wastes through the life cycle in accordance with agreed international frameworks, and significantly reduce their release to air, water, and soil in order to minimize their adverse impacts on human health and the environment. Climate action, strengthen resilience and adaptive capacity to climate-related hazards and natural disasters in all countries. Life below water, no security. Life on land, no security. Peace, justice, and strong institutions. Significantly reduce all forms of violence and related death rates everywhere. It's in highly criminal countries with high criminality, like South Africa or Brazil. It's very important, this part, which not only relates between peace to peace between states, but also inside societies, which are highly fragmented and abuse, exploitations, trafficking, and all forms of violence against and torture of children. Strengthen relevant national institutions, including through international cooperation for building capacity at all levels, in particular in developing countries, to prevent violence and combat terrorism and crime. Now this is the 17th goal. And this 17th goal should be the most important, as it focuses on partnership and cooperation. The symbolic picture shows two hands, shows a handshake. It is well-intentioned, this handshake, I assume. But when you look closer, you realize that the white hand squeezes the black hand. Did you ever greet somebody and the other one is I can greet you now. I do like
Our.
this. You see our. And now I have it like this. My perception is wrong, but it's not a friendly handshake in my perception. And it's the official symbol. Sorry, Achim, I didn't want to hurt you. Okay. That's yeah. Yes. Yeah. Hence, the picture is really symbolic in an ironic way. Involuntarily, this picture reveals that there can be no trust between partners when one hand squeezes the other like this. Maybe I wanted to see it, but I think I can prove it. Yeah, this one is the black hand, and this is the white hand. Yeah, and they wanted to show togetherness, but I don't know which way. There are other symbols where the hands are on equal level, but I don't want to overemphasize on this. Ubuntu, a sustainable method of discourse. We have to start with our present situation. Contemporary democratic discourses are frequently, though not exclusively, characterized by an attitude of pro and con, where the aim is to persuade others, a jury or an audience, of what is right and what is wrong, almost binary approach. As the symbolic picture of the 17th goal shows, there is no trust between unequal partners when one side is depending on the other's goodwill, and there is only mistrust between the two. It does not seem that the white hand is loosening its grip. Democratic discourse, as we experience it today, is highly adversarial. That means that parties are more or less fighting each other, and with arguments. In German, the word argument is not so. In English, it's more like streiten. It's more like quarreling when you have arguments with one another. And that, in Germany, I would say, well, it's okay when you have a good argument. But when you have arguments, then it's like a small conflict sometimes. When there are decisions to be made, one side will win, the other will lose, maybe trying to take revenge at the next occasion. The same applies for elections. In our today's democratic systems, you will find a mass of people that see themselves cornered by what they call the mainstream. Populist movements emerge and gain strength. Ubuntu has a different approach. It is a relational principle of togetherness. People would caucus and discuss until consensus is reached. Such an approach is rather time-consuming, of course, but it can enhance society in a forward-looking manner. I remember situations in South Africa where the communities who have been forcibly removed, they developed strategies. One was, we go back to take care of our graveyard, which they did in the end, and so to say, illegally settled then on that graveyard or close to it. And the women would say, those men, they sit in caucus all the time and we do all the work. That's another thing, also connected with, to be honest, with the Ubuntu idea that both genders, all sorts of people should be involved in this caucus, and not only the men, which is traditionally the case with these societies in Africa. I came to know. People would caucus, as I said, and it can enhance society in a forward-looking manner. In Germany, there was a highly polarized situation in the times of COVID-19. Those who opposed vaccination formed a protest movement, adhering to strange ideas of global conspiration and disinformation added to that. The pandemic caused a loss of control, and political leadership had to act not really knowing what is right or wrong. The whole situation was characterized by a loss of confidence and trust. Now that the crisis seems to be over, one has to realize that those who felt marginalized during the crisis, and probably were, not only felt like, now continue to find themselves in a social corner. They don't talk much about it. The Populist Party, AfD, is an alternative to many of them, even though they might not even agree with their inhuman ideology and attitude towards migrants, for instance, but also towards the European Union and climate change, which they deny and fundamentally question. And I have the impression that this sort of not worked upon trauma of COVID. I learned that in the 1908 there was this Spanish influenza. People shifted immediately to normal daily life when it was over. They didn't want to hear anything, and I experienced that at the moment. And some of these populist things, but it's my idea, I am not sure. Maybe one should go deeper into that security issue. Yeah. In this situation, the ideas of Ubuntu are quite promising. Desmond Tutu based his Truth Commission on Ubuntu, and it was implemented in the South African Constitution, and in the first part of it. This Ubuntu can be seen as a part of their liberation culture, which helps to facilitate a process of mutuality in society. It is an often neglected form of dialogue. Dialogue usually is either confrontative or ends in total disagreement. These are three levels. And we have situations where we cannot have Ubuntu. We must admit that. When some people tell me lies, and I know it's fake news, then I have to oppose. So I cannot, I have to listen and be polite. But there are situations in war times, and the right time must come, so that we also might say it's senseless to argue. There is no chance. So Ubuntu is a tool and a philosophy which is very strong and powerful, but there are situations in life where it would not work. And it's a very difficult situation when it comes to war in Ukraine. We cannot say we love one another. I do say so, but when both sides are getting armed under the roof top, it's very difficult. So it is necessary to implement the ideas of Ubuntu as early as in childhood education and training. Because I'm sure if we would discuss as long as like we try with the Kadin-Nabia agenda, that's one part, an attempt where nobody can say, I know everything, and the others have to follow. It's a sort of Ubuntu strategy. But when it comes to exist in the peace movement, when I was young and studied in the 70s, 80s, then we also had to discuss, should we block NATO headquarters in Heidelberg? And we had some like Ubuntu-like strategies. And it was an endless discussion and caucusing until we found a decision what we're going to do. And it's a very strainful enterprise to do that. Ubuntu, together with other post-colonial concepts like gross national happiness and buen vivir, can round up the SDG concept, which is solely based on Western thinking. That is one of the main critiques also of Ernst Ulrich von Weizsäcker, and that is only based on our strategies and our mathematical thinking and rational approach. Since the SDGs fail in terms of timely fulfillment, that we can already state, it is to be expected that after 2030, when this failure will be analyzed, there will be a new agenda process, I'm sure, continued. It will be helpful that the three mentioned approaches from non-Western countries will be taken into account. Now a few words about Ubuntu. Due to time reasons, I cannot explain in depth buen vivir and gross national happiness. The African philosophy of Ubuntu, or Bato. Ubuntu is in the Zulu or isiXhosa language, and Bato is more Sesotho. These are, South Africa has 11 languages, national languages, in order to satisfy each and every nation inside South Africa's. This Ubuntu philosophy can be defined as the continuous motion of the unfoldment of the universe, abstract Ubu, brought to life by the life force Ntu. More popularly, it is described as, that's how Desmond Tutu used to preach, I am because we are, or a person is a person through other persons. Muntu ngumuntu ngabantu. That is the Zulu, they emphasize. It's a very interesting language. It is a collective ontology which stresses the value of compassion and relatedness and life as mutual aid. It is embodied in national Bato Pele, people-first policies related to government conduct, even though the South African situation is not according to Ubuntu. We find a lot of, maybe it's always when one party has always ruled the country, like the ANC, then you have very difficult situations like corruption and so on. Ubuntu does not know the word development. I come back to the SDGs, but stresses humanness as verb in relations, including nature. Ubuntu economy stresses the intrinsic value of human life instead of human capital, ending dominance of capital, sovereignty of people over capital, and supporting the global social floor. It extends the same respect to nature as to people. Ubuntu strives at collective agency. What can we, including myself, do so that we live better, is the question, highlighting the importance of extended family-centered thinking. Reconstructive economic principles include employment for all based on no one is useless, inclusiveness, and we work as one, collaborate, and living in time rather than on time, and sharing instead of profit. There are, I skipped them, legal implications. I mentioned the South African constitution, the first attempt to create a new constitution. Until today, there are many implementations of Ubuntu in the South African legislation. To reduce the philosophy as expansive as Ubuntu to targets and indicators like the SDGs is somewhat contrary to what it tries to achieve, namely to infuse humans with consciousness and wholeness and interdependence on each other and their national surroundings, including a spiritual level of being. All these aspects are important to build trust and confidence in societies that until today focus on consumption, as Ernst Ulrich von Weizsäcker pointed out yesterday, rather than on life quality, which consists of mutuality and reliability of human relations. The African philosophy of Ubuntu offers valuable insights in this regard, as it implies relational notions of power that contrast and complement individualist facets. It provides a space to think and speak in ways that support harmonious and cohesive societal structures and practices. A quote by Tavernaro Haidarian. She is, I think, a Palestinian, and she wrote a very interesting book on these issues. And I referred to on her findings, and she tries to elaborate the discourse shift, mindset shift towards Ubuntu, away from the Western thinking. Now we come to this very briefly. All three worldviews of the Global South lead to the following general conclusions on the SDGs. Sustainable use of environment leads to harmony with nature. The SDGs depart from an anthropocentric sustainable development point of view, aiming at the sustainable use of resources. They are not biocentric, aiming to respect nature for nature's sake and enabling reciprocity with nature, present to varying degrees in happiness, Ubuntu and Buen Vivir. A biocentric view would require replacing sustainable use of environment by harmony with nature. In one of the SDGs, harmony, or in the targets, harmony with nature is even mentioned, but it's not predominant. Secondly, the SDGs embody the need for linear growth, which requires resource exploitation, posing a problem given that resources are limited. Cyclical thinking is necessary, following the regenerative cycles of nature. This means modeling the economy and law around the Earth system, and not the other way around. Cyclical thinking would replace GNP growth with well-being of all beings. And the time topic is very interesting when it comes to Buen Vivir. I just want to mention this one. They do not think in 5 years. They do think in 1,000 years. Yeah. Yes, no, I'm almost through. Yes. It's only about 4 or 5 pages. No, I'm joking. It's less. I should have said only 20 pages left. Yeah, sorry. And I feel a bit insecure that I don't want to leave. Then maybe it's going to take very long if I try to speak freely. So I stick to my concept here in order to. So I hope that does not disturb too much. Yeah. So the third issue is development has to be replaced with interrelationship. I can abbreviate that one. The SDGs do not address the private sector and individualism. More attention to limiting one's own intake to what is necessary and sharing with the other is needed, which means limitation of profit making and so on. The fourth point is it's suggested that one should not speak of development goals, but of value. It's an important difference. Lastly, in the SDGs, in the SDG negotiations, cross-cultural philosophical bridges were largely absent. Yeah. Coalitions can be built with regions as well as bridges between happiness, Ubuntu and Buen Vivir, so that small localized value processes leading towards well-being, good living, join forces in interpreting and adjusting the globalization process. Now I come to the last main point, trust and confidence, security, safety, certainty. In our complex capitalist industrialized societies, the concept of trust is increasingly central to political and economic activity. This also applies to media reporting, advertising, market and opinion research, as well as in science and social political discourse. Since about the 1990s, a social transformation process of economization has been taking place, potentially penetrating all areas of life. Through the institutionalization of competition and economic incentive systems. Social coordination is understood as market coordination and concepts of efficiency and effectiveness related to exchange and trade are the determining categories of an increasingly monetary assessment of human activity. In particular, the tendencies of social particularization and anonymity, as well as institutional deregulation occurring in the context of globalization processes, lead to increased insecurity in society. As interactions and transactions increasingly take place between strangers, and actions find it increasingly difficult to access the contingent behavior of their counterparts. Trust is considered an important and rare resource that should be able to be used in a well-founded manner with regard to economic decisions and actions. What can currently be understood under trust stands in relation to what can gain validity under economization and commercialization in the form of knowledge. Decisions made under uncertainty, in a very Sinan's speech that was mentioned, decisions made under uncertainty, as you said, every business has to face in institutionalized competition, are considered rational if they bring a calculable and quantifiable effective and efficient benefit in commercialist terms. Under these conditions, trust is considered to be a reason for action that is functionally narrowed towards expediency, as well as one that requires justification in expedient terms. Seen in this light, the economization of trust has led to the erosion of the concept itself. Trust cannot be calculated, but is actually a relational concept. Trust economized in this way is a weak surrogate for genuine trust. But then I have to know the people, and I cannot do online ordering. I mean, I do that always, books. Yeah, for genuine trust, trust economized in this way is a weak surrogate for genuine trust that has grown in an interpersonal relationship, as suggested by the Ubuntu philosophy. Similarly, this applies for security, safety, and certainty. I just found this 1-cent coin, "In God we trust," but it's not a missionary approach from my side. It's just, it shows, maybe some of you or all of you know Max Weber when he explains American capitalism with the ethics of Protestantism, of a certain Protestantism. Yeah, well, seen in this light, similarly, this applies for security, safety, and certainty, which are important elements when it comes to trust building. And these elements can be seen with the dollar or euro sign in your eyes, or in an Ubuntu-style approach. I don't want to moralize. It is important to talk about both relationship and finances. Few questions. For how much security do we pay? Oh no, it's too early. Do we need gated communities like in Brazil or South Africa, where people who own something protect themselves and their property? Or do we need gated continents, as we have it now in Europe and America? For how much safety do we pay? We pay for robots, which do the industrial work. In former times, human labor was necessary. So we save the money for labor safety in our highly industrialized countries. That is possible. But what about the mine workers in China or in South Africa? That is a huge question in future. They all will be superfluous. For how much certainty do we pay? This sounds a bit funny. Can we pay for certainty? Certainty in case of risk minimization, of course, it's expensive. Evaluation and then exclusion of risks, as Sinan's wonderful graphic showed. But certainty is more than the outcome of risk analysis. Certainty is a theological term that denotes trust in God's mercy. But in our context, I rather emphasize on the philosophical meaning of certainty. this has to do with truth and knowledge. Can we gain certainty by scientific results? During the pandemic, science did what science always does, finding solution. Katharina and I spoke yesterday about that. Science finds solutions by various research methods, verification, falsification, and so on. And different researchers got different results. Some were falsified, some were verified, sometimes or very often too late. Trial and error in a situation of multifaceted uncertainty. But people wanted to get certainty. The more they longed for the one and only truth, the more they lost their confidence in both science and politicians, and thus they lost control. I'm convinced that this loss of control was a severe trauma experience that our societies did not yet recover from during COVID. People are longing for clear answers, but the world situation is somehow shrouded in mist, like today's weather in the morning. Conclusion and future perspective. Oh, what is this?
Yes.
Oh,
It
it's
speaks for itself.
Yes.
It speaks for itself.
Yes. Thank you very much for your patience.
Yeah, thank you so much for
Pleasure.
the more philosophic views based on your background in theology, the Old and the New Testament, across all,
I did not even quote.
not borders, across the various philosophies. And basically, it's the magic of life, the fabric of life, which is so strong on one way and so vulnerable on the other way.
Mm-hmm.
And we here in a privileged situation really would be nice to use our privileged situation for the good.
Yes.
Not like,
Yeah,
being
that's the
good every
point.
5 minutes,
Yes.
but valuing the possibilities and Ubuntu doing
Yes.
this together.
Yeah.
Grazie mille.
Thank you. Are there questions or? There are questions. Okay.
Okay, well, first of all, Lutz, thank you very much for this informative presentation and for your ideas. So, I was looking at the United Nations goals, 17 of them, apparently 191 countries unanimously signed, including the ones ruled by dictators. Everybody committed to these goals.
Yes.
And when you were going through those goals one by one with
Yes.
a triangle, I was thinking, so currently, as we speak, there are 5 wars going on in the world.
Yes.
Okay. What percent of Africa doesn't have access to water? How many children are going hungry every day? The migration, there are 12 million refugees in Turkey, 3 million in Jordan. Every day, thousands of people are crossing the borders of southern borders of US and so on and so forth. So the world is in turmoil, and the goal is by 2030, all these problems
Yeah, they're
will
gone.
be will be resolved, and that's the goal of the United Nations. So, what's your perspective on that? What percent they have achieved? And honestly, I don't trust United Nations based on these the facts happening today. So,
Yes.
do you think it will be achieved, or what percent can be achieved?
Yeah. You remember my helpless question I posed to Ernst Ulrich von Weizsäcker when I hoped that maybe the Club of Rome can promote these Ubuntu ideas and Buen Vivir and so on. And he said he was not happy. His answer was not full of hope. But I think we have to be realistic. And for me, I still wear this button with these colors because I think it's a tool to make somebody aware. And I was many times I was asked, "You are a pastor. What is this round thing? You should have a cross." And then I said, "No, it's the development goals." And as I told already that a Serbian philosopher said to me, "It's nonsense." He's a communist, and he says it's a capitalist nonsense. But I don't go so far. Yeah, I have no answer, but let's hope. Yeah.
Thank you. That was a comment anyway. Not,
Yeah, sure.
I didn't expect
You
to
didn't
answer.
expect. Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
And my comments actually follow up a little bit on the previous ones. So you mentioned the Ubuntu concept. The Chinese actually have also a harmony concept, the full
Yes.
concept.
Yeah.
But we Westerners have the Bible, and the Bible says, "Macht euch die Erde untertan,"
Which is
not
not correctly translated.
Yes, nowadays it is. So nowadays people say,
No, I'm
it's
wrong.
like
You're right, it is. But there is another quotation that says you have to protect the earth.
Yeah.
And
So
the
now
same-
it's a conservatorship. But it was,
Yeah.
it was
Schöpfung
subdue
bewahren.
the earth, unterwerft die
Yeah,
Erde.
in
So-
Hebrew it means you have to do this.
Exactly. So there was. It's more of a chaos principle,
Yes.
and the argument is there. In our world, actually, human beings do particularly astonishing work when there's chaos, right? Because in a way, not having harmony is to be an enormous goal of re-achieving that. So maybe actually it's better not to have harmony, which is a provocative statement,
Yeah.
because then you have something to strive toward. And in the famous words of Harry Lime, for those of you who are again older, from The Third Man, this is an old movie where he says, Switzerland had 800 years of democracy and harmony, and what did they get? And then he compares, and so Italy had 30 years of the Medici with like creativity and a lot of cultural development. The Swiss 800 years of democracy, and what did they get? The cuckoo's clock, he says. So this was a summary of what you get when you have harmony versus what you get when you have chaos. And
But this quotation is not true. The cuckoo's clock was invented in Furtwangen.
Exactly.
so then they have nothing in Switzerland.
No, but
Is harmony overrated?
yeah. No, you're right in a way that it's very important to try and, in spite of everything, trotz alledem und alledem, and especially these war issues are very make a person helpless in a way when it comes to these high incentives. And I'm happy that I found a Muslim quotation. It's a famous Rumi, Persian poet. And
But the point is, they're not making us helpless. In fact, so the Romans always had this Carthago delendam esse. So there was always this, you have to have this external enemy so that you essentially bring unity inside and have this enormous force for action. So not hopelessness, but really, so chaos gives you strength.
Yes, but you know,
Listen,
religions.
we only have one life on earth, you know. I like to live like the night become as old as North Visadi.
I can.
In a peaceful environment. But you're right.
I want to do. Just stay with me for a moment, because you are so aggressive, and I want to give you an explanation. You know, the Christians always said, Jesus said, when somebody hits you on your right cheek, you must give the other cheek. Now,
Also incorrectly translated, right?
but it's a very practical thing. Please hit my right cheek with your right hand, because until today the left hand is not a good hand. It must be right. All people were right-handed. Now try to hit not really, but just do as if.
You know, I'm left-handed. That is
No
so
problem.
You will not do well with that.
But you have to use the right hand because we try to understand this sentence of Jesus.
Yes.
Try. How would you do that? No, that's my left cheek.
Yeah,
This is
you
my
said my
cheek.
right hand. My right hand hits your left cheek.
No, you have to. My right cheek must be
Okay.
hit. No, not this one. This
Oh.
one. You have to use this hand to hit this cheek. How do you do
No,
that?
I don't. You see, this is in the war. I can do whatever I like. I can use my left hand to hit your
Do
left
you
cheek.
want to understand that quotation?
No, I don't.
So then you sit down and keep quiet. Who else wants? No, you have to slap my. You know, yeah, that's the right answer. Wonderful, and that is then you are erniedrigen. You humiliate me, and you know the sense of it is just the other way around because he said, "No, I'm on eye level with you. You take this one, and then we fight." So it's just. It is a very interesting American theologian who, and I was so happy because my religious teacher, she told us that in primary school, and the gang from the neighborhood street in Karlsruhe, they hit me down, and I thought I tried this. It was not a good experience, and my mother also gave me some because I was dirty. Yeah. And so, but this explanation of this Jesus, I was just, yeah. But now you have a question. Sorry.
Yeah, so I wanted to ask, religion is a structuring element in the cultural development for centuries. And so my question is, how can religion help us on our way to more sustainability?
There are ethical traditions in each and every religion. Maybe in Buddhist and Hinduist, well, Hinduism is a different thing, or maybe the Aboriginal, the old shaman religions that are very much embedded in cyclic thinking, and not like the monotheistic religions. It's a very good question because we also Muslims and Jewish people, we think in a linear way. And actually, I sometimes, which is the ruling religion in our today's world? It's a very simple question, and every economical person, every economist knows it. It's Christianity. Did you ever have a business according to Jewish calendar or Chinese calendar or Muslim calendar? No, it's all our calendar. And in Bible, you can find that the calendar system always defines the ruler. When Jerusalem was destroyed, it says it was in the such and such year of the king Nebuchadnezzar of Babylon. Then he took over, and his time took over. And this is a very hidden symbol of that. Yeah, but when it comes to the forces that can maybe serve and save and bring about sustainability, then you have ethical parts in each and every religion that would preserve. But it's, for me, the Bible and the Quran and also the Hebrew Bible, they are the most dangerous books in the world. And you have to be careful in reading them. And that's yet another problem. But thanks for your question. Maybe you can discuss because people shall share.
Yes, water is life. It stopped raining.
Yes.
And we together are going now to the shores.
That was my drive presentation.
Yes. Now we go to the shores of Lake Como together, to the stretch along the lake where Konrad Adenauer, first chancellor of Germany, which he loved so much. And I'm sure we will, when we walk along the shore, we'll have plenty of good dialogues about your presentation. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.